nobody's got any corrections or additions to the, well,
Right to your email.
the minutes will stand as read and filed. And then we go to the engineer's report. If anybody, where is the engineer on? Is somebody there from the engineering department?
Brian will be with us in just a moment.
Oh, is James there? Hello, James.
Hi,
James, can you-
Brian will be with us in just a moment if you give him a second.
Oh, okay.
Tom, do you want to go ahead and let me give the
James.
manager's report?
Yeah, go ahead and give your report, and then we'll go back to Brian.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have
Good morning.
in two different ways. Sound is on the iPad, and then of course you can I can manage and host from the desktop. So I'm split between two screens, so that's why I have two different views. Anyways, okay, now I've got my manager's report. Did anybody on the committee have any questions about what was submitted in their packets last week?
Say again?
Did you have any questions on the manager's report submitted in your packet last week?
Thought we were having the engineer's report.
No, we're having a
Brian's
manager.
not with us, so we're moving forward with the manager's report, and we're going to scoop him back up in a minute.
Oh, looks pretty good. I read your.
No questions here.
Okay. Well, for the benefit of those viewing on YouTube, I'm going to just give the highlights. Some of this stuff you've already heard before, especially if you've tuned in over the last couple months, but we're closing up the corridor HVAC project. It is, so far we have a rough guesstimate of $534,677.78. We still have to reconcile the full engineering invoices. We are still holding the final payment in the amount of $62,890.30. They'll be fine with it. It's a 30-day pay. We're still waiting for a couple of things on the punch out. So when I get that confirmed with our building engineer, and then the project engineer, Bob Cruz of TRC, will go ahead and release those funds. This month, I worked with the board treasurer. We talked about some CDs and some ideas about what we'd like to do with the CDs that are coming due, because unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the interest rates have really just dropped right in the bucket. And so at this point, we're considering a few other alternatives, money market or what have you, to keep some of the money liquid. But our treasurer is on, and if anybody has any questions, she can certainly answer a little more to that. And then she'll have more information in our budget and finance committee meeting within the next 2 weeks. The good news is that we had an ongoing noise problem at unit 119 for the last several years. And we've had an engineer come out. That engineer has written an opinion. I have taken the scope of work for his recommendations and submitted it out to 3 concrete contractors. And within the next 2 weeks, they're all working to come out and visit us and have a look and give us a price on what it's going to cost to remedy or at least mitigate some of that issue. And we can throw that into the budget for 2021. Elevator consultants. We are still working. We have an elevator task force or working group, whatever the nomenclature of the day is. Bottom line, our vice president, Carol Mills, is chairing that. And we have another meeting scheduled via Zoom next week to talk about that and all of the different functions of that. My focus at this point, though, everybody, is budget. If you have, thank you, James, got you. Okay, if you have, you know, some budget input for 2021, please email me, let me know, give me the, you know, not only the project that you want, give me an estimated cost that you think your project would run, and we can put it in the numbers and see what happens. We may have to phase some of that out, but we may not, so let me know, okay? And last but not least, of course, I've mentioned it, I think everybody has COVID-19. We know that the LWVA campus has got a working group for phased opening, and we're working with a tentative schedule today as part of our agenda. So unless there's any other questions, please let me know.
Anybody got anything to say?
Thank you.
Yep, look good. All right, then going on to the engineers report.
How's everybody today?
Good,
Great.
so far.
Okay, I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights from last month. The punch list on all 3 rooftop units was performed on the 7th. We got a few things on there, like let's see. The function, we got a hold of function, the roof people, and they're going to come back and he came out to take a look at some of the rooftop items, like it was pointed out by Bob Cruz, and I believe Bert was up there. Some bolts that needed covered, some bolts that tie down the air handling units and the AC units that are exposed that should be sealed, and the number 2 air handler, number 2 AC unit on the roof, spot on the slab where the sealant has flaked off because the water's standing, and a few other items, and they haven't got back with me yet, so. We had the building-wide hydrojetting on the 12th through the 14th. That went great. Kevco insulators finished insulating the rooftop units, as pointed out in the punch list section. Flow they were going to come back and re-insulate the HVAC lines, the residential HVAC coolant lines at no charge, and they've got half the building done. They were going to come back. I just emailed them.
Somebody needs to mute.
What's that?
I'm getting too much noise.
Yeah, just mute.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead. Get a lot of noise.
I need to mute.
I have to come back and do the other half of the building.
Yeah, just
Also, on the number 2 air handler, the fluid extensions on the heater were installed, and everything's working out fine with that. And I just want to add, it's not on my, it should be on next month's report, but
Yeah, go ahead.
It gives the temperature and the humidity for each hallway.
Right.
He's already installed all 22 of them. We're trying to work those right capability
We're getting too much noise. I can't hear.
I don't know who's making that noise. Oh. Oh. So is there any questions?
I didn't get it. What about the air, these thermostats in the hallways? What was you gonna do?
The loggers,
Right?
they ordered, they came in, and there's 2 in each hallway. James installed 2 in each common area hallway.
Good.
We'll eventually have those connected to the Wi-Fi. Anyway, gives the temperature and the humidity, kind of give us an idea, so we can work with the settings on the rooftop units.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody else got anything?
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
You're welcome.
Brian, I just wanted to ask about, or maybe you could mention the recent visit from Emmy Flo regarding the gurgling sounds that I had.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
When Emmy Flo came out to check the lines, when I had that gurgling sound again in my bathroom.
Yeah. The main line below your unit, they came out, and the day after, they came out and rehydrojetted that line. And have you had any problems since then?
I've not had any problem, but
Okay.
it was really scary because that gurgling sound is what I was hearing before I had the overflow. And I'm just wondering if it might be a good idea to remind residents again to not be flushing flushable wipes. When I heard that sound, it really, really frightened me. I was afraid there was another clog.
So the day after you reported it, I called Emmy Flo and we scheduled them to come out the next day, and they rehydrojetted the 4-inch line below your unit and up to and back into that line.
They didn't find any obstruction though.
No.
Okay.
If it was farther down the line, I don't know, but it's pretty clean now. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else?
And I just want to say I really appreciate the prompt response.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Brian, did you say that the stacks that were put on number 2 have been installed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Go to old business and party room sound system. That's the next thing. Anybody got any questions on it?
Jack, did you want to speak to this?
Well, I can. I mean, as everyone knows, the last month you tabled the party room audio because you didn't get the information from Rob quick enough. And so we reached back out to him and he basically hasn't responded. So the technology working group sort of written him off. And I resubmitted to you the item list with the current prices because I went back and redid every item. Some couple came down. You didn't get the color code. Reach back out. Someone's watching on YouTube and it's feeding back. But anyway, so the revised one is color coded. A couple prices went down. A couple items went up, and some of us still have their YouTube channel going because I'm listening to the echo. And then I item list with the current prices because I went back and redid every. All right. Well, I don't know whose YouTube channel. Someone has their channel going in the background. A couple came down. You didn't get the color code. Anyway, so I missed one item, and I've added that in there. And we repriced everything out, and we no longer are planning to use Rob from Breaking Ground. He did get back to us with a quote of what he could provide. And I think Ken, it was something like a $200 savings if he bought all the equipment on our list. But essentially, he would be buying everything on the list at the same price we could get it through B&H. And he got just a small discount off of the 2 Shure items that are on that list. So I think, working better to just go without Rob and just come. I don't know who's listening to the YouTube channel, but the delay is a little annoying.
Can I ask you a question, Jack?
Sure.
Tom Jordan. At the last meeting, we were looking into trying to get someone to provide a warranty on what is installed. And just the history of this, the reason we're going through this exercise now is because the last acquisition for sound system failed and there was no maintenance agreement. So that's why we're going through this all over again. Are we going to get a maintenance agreement with this? Is there going to be somebody who we can call in to maintain it afterwards? So that leads me to the second issue. So we're going to be doing virtual meetings for the unknown future. Is this really a pressing issue? Or could we not table this until we're all back in the room talking together?
It's very hard to hear. Tom,
Who's on?
I don't know who's listening to the YouTube feed.
Okay.
Someone is. Maybe
Can the
Faith.
manager mute everybody except Jack and I? Can I see a question?
I just went through and unmuted or muted everyone except for
Tom Jordan.
Jack. I mean, Tom and Jack.
Well, anyway, my point is basically there doesn't seem to be an urgency to this if we're doing our meetings remotely. We don't have a real pressing need for audio visual meeting together. So could we not table this until we can get a little more information on who can provide warranty on the system that's going to be installed?
I guess you could put it off as long as we stay in the COVID environment and we never meet in person, then yes, you could probably continue this way. When we put to Rob about the maintenance and the warranty, that's basically what he dropped out. So his business is being run out of his house. And so I think he's just was looking for a job where he could do a quick install. And he wasn't interested in warranting or not.
Right, but
If you stay with us, certainly James, Ken and I would be, unless we all kick the bucket, you'd still have a crew of people online or in the building who take care of issues that came up. It's very hard listening to you.
yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it seems to me that we never addressed the issue for we bought a brand new shiny thing 2 years ago, and I spent $5,000 to $8,000 on that, and it failed. And I don't dispute your expertise, but do you really want the headache of this? If you run into issues, is it something that really a resident should take on responsibility for?
If I can speak for a moment, Riverview paid $22,000 to have their system upgraded and installed. That included the equipment and the installation. They do not have a maintenance contract. They handle everything else in-house.
That's their short-sightedness.
Exactly.
Well, part of it is
we lost
equipment.
the
With
money that
the
we spent.
digital equipment, they are easier to upgrade the firmware, which is usually one of the biggest issues. Being digital, it's much easier than the analog system, and that was the problem we have here. Is we have an analog system that there's no ability to upgrade unless you replace the hardware.
Well, don't
I'm
know,
so
John,
sorry to interrupt. Excuse me. The Bill Johnson, do you have YouTube streaming? Because when I turned everybody off, I couldn't turn yours off, and that's where I was getting the echo.
His is off now.
And we're not having the echo anymore.
Not having the echo anymore.
Thank you.
I
I'm sorry,
wanted,
James. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken.
okay, yeah, James had said the Riverview did not have a maintenance. I don't believe Blue Ridge does have a maintenance. They came to the technology working group to come up with a solution that would cost the building less money. It would be about, from about $8,800 a round figure up to 22,000 is a large savings. One of the problems that we encountered the last time we put an audio system in was when we changed the TV that was digital. It wasn't compatible because the old system was analog. So with the new system, it had an analog versus a digital. That's where the impasse is. Everything is digital now. So that's what we're looking at. We've been talking about the audio system for a year. We're no further ahead now than we were a year ago.
understood, but
We
is there,
still have the same bad audio system that we do. So we propose, do you want to save the money and start with it? I'm not sure if you're going to have any sort of a guarantee, warranty, or maintenance system, unless you want to pay maybe $22,000 just for the installation and then additional for the maintenance.
all issues that need to be understood and discussed. But again, the other part of this is, how long are we gonna be in cyberspace doing meetings? And if we're gonna be in cyberspace for another 6 months, we could save ourselves from spending that money until 6 months from now.
The problem with that is if you wait until that time and you go back to a live meeting, you won't have the system installed. If we do it now over the next couple of months, we could have it installed, worked out all the bugs out of the system, and have it ready to go when you guys do go back to live person meetings.
We were able to get along pretty well with, limping along with what we had. We could certainly go back to that until we had the new system installed and ready to go. But I don't know. I don't want to see us spend money if we don't have to, when we don't have to. If we can wait 6 months and then spend the $8,000 to $10,000 for what we need, with or without a maintenance agreement, depending on what the committee agrees to, then let's wait and not spend the $10,000 until we have to.
All right, Mike.
This
My
is Joyce
question-
Moore. This is Joyce Moore. I'd just like to say that we're not sure how long this is going to be, that we can't gather together and make use of public rooms, and that should be considered.
Predictions are that in the next 2 to 3 months, we should be able to have a gathering of 10 or more people in our party room to have a meeting. And besides that, it doesn't affect our budget at all to do that now as opposed to 6 months from now. That is still comes out of the same budget. It still is part of the same activity. We aren't saving ourselves any money by delaying.
Okay, which one? I got two prices here, 8,800 and 8,100. Excuse me. Which one's the latest?
The bright one is 8826 and 77.
What page are you on?
I'm not on the page. I'm just looking at my
Oh,
final thing. I don't have the full agenda.
I'm looking at these that was sent in to
All right,
me.
one that
But
looks
it
like it's,
doesn't have a total at the bottom. I'm figuring
well, that's,
88.
okay, it doesn't have a COLA because it wasn't, you're missing everything from line 15 on,
Right.
16 cents. So at the bottom, it would be line 20 has the total, which is 8826.77.
Okay. So 8,800 is the new one rather than
Yes.
8,100. Okay.
Because I neglected to include one item, and that item is a $700 item.
Yes. Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Couple of questions. How close to the Riverview configuration is the one that we're planning here?
It's a carbon copy of that. What we did not include in from the Riverview, they had to buy a rack system and a cabinet to install stuff, but basically taking those out and they had a point tilt zoom camera. We didn't need that material, so that's not included. But everything else is what was in Riverview and based on the component parts that they had.
Is the television system the same as Riverview's?
I have no idea what TV they
Well,
use.
then it's not identical, is it?
That was not, their TV was not on their parts list.
Yes, but they have the television that they're using, and I assume they have one, would be critical in terms of the interfaces that match with what we're putting in.
I don't have that answer.
They
Well,
are both, they
HDMI
are both digital. They're
Yeah.
both new, brand new digital TVs.
But they are not identical.
Oh, but you can plug one TV into another components. I'm doing it right here. I got it in my set.
Well, each television manufacturer comes up with different interface devices. Every year they change and every manufacturer does something different. So if we're not identical in the television set, it's not an identical configuration.
The TVs, both at Riverview and here, have HDMI connections, optical outputs, and that is the exact same.
It's not
Brand and the
exact,
manufacturer of the TV is irrelevant because the HDMI is HDMI.
it is not irrelevant.
Yes, it is. We know that. That any TV can be hooked into any audio system as long as they're both digital. That is just a fact.
That's true. I got 3 different outfits around here, so. And they work.
I'll take your word for it, but I don't believe it.
Well, mine works and my son-in-law's works and Riverview's works, and I think ours would work too.
I think we will have to wait and see about that. And we will have to see what the speaker configuration is going to be. Are we identical to the speaker configuration in Riverview?
Are you asking, are the parts, the speakers the same? Is that what
No, how we're installing the speakers.
Well, they actually, in their system, the TV speakers are separate from the meeting set of speakers. So that the TV speakers have the woofer and the surround sound, and it's the way they've configured it. And it's a separate configuration from when you hold a meeting and you're using microphones to hold a meeting. We can certainly place
Are we retaining?
Pardon me?
Are we retaining any of the speakers we currently have?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so some of the speakers that are on your schematic are speakers that are already in place. Is that right?
They were purchased earlier in the year or just late last year.
Okay, it doesn't matter. They're there right now. We don't have to buy them again.
That's right. But we're adding more because we're going to also have it separated just like Riverview has it. The microphones will be on one system. The TV will be on the other system of speakers. They'll all be in the ceiling, just like they have it in Riverview.
Yeah, that's logical. That's logical. So in other words, you'll have 2 different systems for 2 different functions.
And you would be controlled by the iPad on the wall. So if you want to present movie night, you'd hit that function and it would set it up for movies. If you were doing a meeting, a board meeting, a committee meeting, you'd set up that, you'd basically tap that function and it would set it up that way.
That's great.
I'm glad you brought up the iPad because when we set up iPads, not everybody understands the configuration that's shown on the iPad. Are we going to get an instruction sheet so we don't have to go running to the manager's office to find out what works?
I'm
Yes,
sure.
once we get everything programmed and set up, I'll work out step-by-step instructions and
Okay,
print it out.
I understand.
The way that the Riverview set it up, it's really dumbed down for the people that have no skills on how to use it. So all you has very simple directions. Watch a movie, it turns on all the appropriate equipment and gives you the volume control for that. It's the same thing with microphones. If you want microphones, you do for that, you punch that button and it starts up that system. And it's very, very basic, and that is what we want to mimic here.
That's okay. Now, when the TV is on, we have a, what do you call it? What do you call that thing that you put the CDs, the DVDs in those?
Yes, we have one.
Yeah, and that'll hook to it and it'll automatically go through the TV speakers and everything when you have the TV on.
All of that will be synced together.
Okay, that's good. That's all we need to know. All right, sounds good to me. Now, the problem is, do we want to do it now or do we want to wait? That's up to what you guys think. If you have an idea if you want to wait until down the road, or you want to do it now, it's up to you guys.
We have coming later in the agenda, the discussion about the reserve study, and there is showing in there, unless I'm mistaken, a $20,000 item for a sound system or an AV system. What is that about?
That's for in the future. That does not cover this current system. That is us planning ahead for some time in the next future. And I think, I'm not sure if it's 10 years down the road or something like that. I don't remember what the schedule says exactly, but it's not intended for this installation.
I think it's coming up within a couple of years in the reserve study.
Really? Well,
James has a question, a point to make.
James, you got something?
I was just saying, if I remember what I read in the reserve study, it's projected on an every 5-year basis for $20,000 for the sound system.
We got 5 years to worry about it. Is anybody going to make a motion to do it now?
I'll make a motion, considering everything, the fact that the money that would be used to do this, whether it's done now, whether it's done 6 months from now, it's the same money. I would like to make a motion that we proceed with the installation of this audio system in the party room that's installed by members of the technology and working group at a cost of about $8,800.
Not 88,000, 8,800. That's, well, you can make it 8,900 or 9,000, but don't go over that. No 88,000. Any seconds?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second on that. Okay. All in favor, say aye or put your hand up so I can see you on the screen.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Against it? Okay, you got Bill. Anybody else?
Nay, Joyce Moore.
Joyce, okay, you got 2 against and the rest are okay. And George, I see
Is that
George
4
over at
against?
Tom.
You got
George, are you
Tom.
voting? Just a minute. George, are you there over at Tom's place? Okay, are you voting against it or for it? I can't hear you.
I'll tell you, I am voting against it because I feel that we should get some sort of warranty, because we had a system before that everybody said that was great, and we didn't have a warranty, and we wasted all that money.
Okay, we got 3. What about you, Tom? I didn't get your hand. Yes or no?
I don't think we need to do this just yet. I think we need to get back into a room and sort this out.
Okay. So that means we got one,
Four.
two,
Four.
four against. No, you got two of you. You got four against and four for it. You got an even tie because there's only 8 of us.
You get to break the tie. Gets to break the tie.
Who's the 8?
There's only 8 people on the committee.
Who voted for it? Jerry, Ken, you, and who else?
Got Charlie.
Charlie. Okay. Sorry, Charlie.
Got 4 of us for it, 4 of us against it. So it's
So
gonna have-
why don't we propose a second motion to table this discussion until the next meeting?
okay, we can.
Then we're still in the same situation 2 months down the road.
I'll make that.
We're at a stalemate with this. So what we can do is table it until next month. That's the only thing I think that you can do. You got to table it and see what you can come up with in next month.
You're not going to.
Because you're not going to get anybody to change their vote today.
If I may just jump in, Tom,
Sure.
what would be the recommendation to the working group for the next month, before the next month is over?
That's a good question, Jack. That is really a good question because
Get a warranty.
get a warranty or see if you can come up with some kind of warranty on it or whatever. I understand that we did spend money last time and it didn't work. I understand that. We had 2 different ones and we took evidently the wrong one. And this is what happens. However, we got to move on with something. So,
Well, if you're going to look for the warranty, then you're going to be looking for someone to install it that will increase the cost over 20,000. That's what we're
right.
looking at.
But at the same time, isn't it better to incur additional costs if you got somebody to go to? We spent, $5,000 to $8,000 on a system that we can't use now because we don't have
That doesn't mean there's somebody else out there that can come in if there's a problem that can do an analysis on it and fix it either.
Good, fix it then.
Fix what we have. It's not.
Fix what you have then. That's great.
Can I say something?
It
Yes.
cannot,
The reason why we can't use, part of the reason why we can't use this system we've got now is because we've got a digital TV and everything.
right.
But
That's one.
my question is, how long is this price how long are they gonna hold the 8,800 for us?
Probably longer.
The prices, as you noted, between the time I first gave you a parts list, 2 of the items went up, 1 item went down. So the prices, this is just ordering from B&H Audio Video, which is where you can get professional electronic equipment. So prices change. There's no guarantee that the price next month will be the same on every single item. But I guess what we can do is look into finding about an installer who can install. Another option might be that we know in the audio room or when we're having a meeting, the feedback is one of the problems is maybe going in and detaching the speakers and trying to separate them out so that the speaking system, we don't have all the speakers going. I don't know. But that could be you bring in a audio person who can do that kind of thing.
I would like to point out that most manufacturers only provide a 1-year warranty for any of their equipment. Installers don't provide any warranty for equipment. They may guarantee their work for a year, but after that, you're involved with a maintenance contract, and that may be what you want to find is somebody who's willing to come in on a call and work on it. But right now, nobody really wants to do that.
No, I agree with you. I agree with Bert. You're going to get maintenance people in here to fix it, put it in, and then they're going to guarantee it for a year, and that's it. They're not going to be wanting to go past 1 year. And same way with all the equipment you buy, they're only usually a 1 year anyway.
So maintenance contract is really the only way to do that, and you can do that at any time.
Can't hear you.
Lean forward.
We didn't hear you.
the maintenance contract is the only way that you're gonna be able to bring in people outside to be working on it. And right now, nobody's really wanting to do that, but that you can work on in the next couple of months because that doesn't matter what you're installing if you bring them in. And in fact, this guy may be ready to do that kind of work in a couple of months.
Well, so we're saying that is nobody can come, nobody wants to do the maintenance work because of the epidemic, the pandemic, correct?
No, no. You got maintenance people that install this equipment. If they do the job, they're going to guarantee their work for 1 year. Then they're going to walk away. That's it. So if you have the engineers or the people like Jack and everybody else that knows how to put this equipment in, it surely is not that difficult. If you know a little bit about stereo systems, I put it in my own house. My son-in-law put it in his house. My God, it's not that hard.
But
And
we
it's
had the
only
same,
guaranteed for a year.
we had the same people on the budget, the Building and Facilities Committee, and the same president. We have the new manager, but we had the same engineers. Everyone agreed to the last system.
Yes,
Well,
but then we got a new TV in the meantime, and that's
Well,
what
you're not-
happened.
You're not quite accurate with all that either,
No.
George. There was a different president. I wasn't president at the time.
2 years ago, you were
Yes,
president.
you were. That's not true. I remember having a discussion.
I've been president for 5 years. This occurred before that.
No, it wasn't. This was brought up in the budget and finance committee.
In any case,
Well, you can't say
we,
that and we accepted carte blanche. I mean, we don't want to make the same mistake that we made.
Well, that's my point. You just don't want to make the same mistake over.
well, we're not
We didn't
going
have
to,
the
because
foresight.
we got smarter
The
people
foresight.
working on it now. We got smarter people working on it now. That's why we're not going to have the same mistake.
Well,
The
I
paperwork
listened
that's
to
in
Bill Johnson and he's got a concern about it. And I really have a lot of respect for his engineering skills.
Point of clarification.
Here's the key.
The paperwork that's in the closet downstairs on the current system has the additional information that was added back in 2013. So it's been more than 5 years.
I don't think that's right, because I remember having this discussion with Bert at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting 2 years ago.
Yeah,
when
we
when it
bought
was proposed.
2 years or 3 years ago, we bought microphones is what we bought. We didn't buy the whole equipment or anything. We bought microphones.
And they
And
didn't
they
work.
And they worked for a while and then they quit. But then we bought the new TV, last year or year before, we bought that new TV. That shut the speakers down because of the problems from digital and analog and all the other stuff.
And we
So-
were trying to manage this all by ourselves. So what we're doing is we're in a do loop here. You know, we're gonna manage a different set of components now by ourselves. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
The early system, the original system we upgraded, Charlie and I worked on it, was installed by the company that we bought it from. They took care of that.
I don't recall,
And it failed.
I don't recall, and probably it's my recollection, about discussing about what television we were going to buy at that time or any time. Was that ever discussed in a building and
Yes,
facilities
it
meeting?
was. Yes, it was. 2 years
Okay.
ago or a year and a half ago, whenever we bought that TV, it was discussed. And it was brought up at that meeting. In fact, Ken's probably got the records of everything because he keeps
It was
all the minutes.
probably unanimous, so anybody that's on the committee now was too.
Okay,
I mean, we went with the TV, so that's
Okay.
an issue.
Yeah, that went without us figuring out that we had to have new equipment with the TV. We didn't figure that, but that's happened.
So
Okay.
can we act on that motion that's on the table? The
What do you
motion, can we act on the motion that was proposed? Table this until next meeting.
I can't hear you.
Can we act on the motion that was,
move closer.
the motion that was made to table the issue until the next meeting? Can we act on that? Can we have a vote on that?
If you wanna make another motion,
I did make a
Do you
motion.
need a motion for a table?
this, no, you can table it. You can table that, but you can make a new motion if you want to go ahead and pass this thing. You can make a new motion. But you can't take the old motion out. It's tabled. It's gone. It's
Oh,
4-4.
it's done.
So
Okay,
if you can have a new one, make a new motion if you
okay,
want to.
done.
What do you want?
If, I just want to postpone the expense.
Okay, the postponement is going to be until next meeting then.
Okay, thanks for
I'm
clarifying.
for the postponement till the next meeting.
That's right.
Voice
Postpone to
four.
that.
And what do you want the technology working group to do between now and then?
I guess
That's a good
reprice
question,
the components.
Or do you want me to see if we can locate an installer who can give us a price to install? and
Yeah, I
maintain?
mean, would Geek Squad or some entity like that be
Well,
possible?
that's what they used in Riverview. They used someone from the Geek Squad who installed it, but did not warrant the work afterward. They would not
That's right.
work.
Best Buy did theirs. There's a company out of Best Buy, what is it, Rainbow or something it's called?
Magnolia or something like that.
Magnolias, that's what it is. They go ahead and they put it in, but you're right, they don't guarantee it.
Well, I can search for some companies and see about what that would cost to do that, if that's what you'd like me to do.
That would be appreciated, because I don't think it's fair for anybody living here to have to take care of equipment that's installed here. That just doesn't seem right to me. You should be compensated for that.
Doesn't
That's
seem
okay.
even legal.
And you had 88,000 up there for a while. I'd be happy. 80 of it. All right, then the working group will get together and we will search for some installers in the area.
Okay.
And
At our
service contract.
last meeting, I had suggested that we pay some attention to system integration, and that disappeared from the list. You've got a collection of components with a very high level diagram, which shows how they're to be interconnected. System
Well,
integrator.
If I may respond, Bill, we had the integration. We thought we were going to present you with that through Rob at Breaking Ground Entertainment. But he backed out of the thing when we gave him a list of questions and asked about warranty and maintenance. He backed out. So in this proposal that you were reviewing right now doesn't have system integration because we were talking about doing it on our own because the person we had hoped would do the work isn't going to do that work. So
Well,
we need to find a new person or a new company to handle the integration and warrant the work and maintenance.
This is where a lot of systems that are under design go astray if they have a collection of components, but they have no plan for integration of the impedances and other factors that go with putting these parts together. I have some familiarity with system integration, and I can tell you that there's a lot of things that can happen between where we are now and where we are when we turn the system on. And what you don't want to have happen is a lot of feedback or a lot of distortion that shows up in the system. Then we will get a lot of complaints about it. And so we have to have somebody who's, if somebody on the committee is already familiar with that and knows what needs to be addressed on this, fine, let them stand up and say the system integration has been taken care of in the following ways.
Well, I guess, Jack, you got your work cut out for you. Okay.
Thank you, Jack, for all the work you've done.
Yes, Jack, I appreciate it. I know I do.
Great work,
Me
Jack.
too.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to new business. We got the fall safety inspection. We got two quotes, one from FEA and one from Walker.
That's right. The background on this is there were modifications made during the roof project that now require an annual fall safety inspection by an engineering firm. FEA was the original consulting firm for the initial inspection and certification, and that's expiring on June 22nd. And FEA gave us a quote of $3,500. Walker Consultants gave us a quote of $3,250. TRC declined. That's not part of their bailiwick. SRG actually was a company that I've worked with and TRC recommended, but they subsequently declined. And so I've reached out to another engineering firm called Sun Groups, and we're trying to see if they'll give us a quote. But we kind of need to go ahead and make a decision, because it looks like the report's about $3,200 to $3,500. So I would ask that the committee go ahead and let us go with one of these two service providers, because we've already been rejected by two others. And I've been working on this Sun Group since Monday, and here we are Thursday. So it's probably going to be a rejection there as well.
Oh, isn't time of the essence because of the expiration of the status of the existing system?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we don't have any time to waste on this. We've got to go ahead with what you have, I think. Right?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, now, two things that occurred to me when I looked at this. Why aren't we asking for a 3-year contract, since we are obligated to do this every year? We might get a better price, not this year, because we got to do this now, but in the future, when we have these recurring things, we're always better off, I think, getting a multiple year contract, because they'll give you a better price.
We can certainly look into it going forward. It's not been something for inspections like this. It's not been something I've seen that engineering firms will do a multi-year, but it certainly begs the question.
Oh,
Do we have any?
I want to point out that the process is quite strenuous and detailed. They have cables that they put between and hook onto the different anchors, and then they put it up to a 5,000-pound stress to make sure that they'll hold properly, and they go through every one of them on the roof to make that happen. So it's fairly extensive, fairly involved process.
Do we have any dissatisfaction with FEA?
Actually, FEA is fantastic. They did a super job for us, the installation, and then they checked it all thoroughly. I was so impressed with what they did for us.
Then is $250 really worth taking a chance on a newcomer?
No.
I would recommend going with FEA.
Yeah, I would too, because they were the consultants when we did the roof. They were, their engineers, structural engineers were up there.
And they know the system, and they are very good at it, and it's a very good company.
It is. It is.
I agree with Bert. We've had very good experience with FEA.
Maybe we could ask them to lock in a price for 3 years, our conversation that we just all finished up on, just as a request when we say we're going to award it to you, but can we get a guaranteed at this level price for 3 years?
Well, or better if we go for 3 years.
Or better.
Well,
Yeah.
Beyond 3 years may not be a good way to actually go. Multi-year contracts are beautiful for pricing, but then you're locked into behavior. And we can, FEA is good now, and I've used FEA at other buildings, and I've never had a problem with them. But being locked in for longer than 3 years, I think handicaps us. So 3 years is a good cutoff,
Right.
if they even offer something like that. But I'm glad to ask.
I think what we need is a motion to do the FEA, if that's what you want, for $3,500 this year. And then when you send it in, Faye, you can ask them, could they do the same price for the next 3 years or 2 years or whatever? What they say.
Why don't we just ask them what they would charge if we give them a 3-year contract?
Yeah, there you go. You can do
not
that.
give it away up front.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion then, Tom.
Can I say
I'd
something?
like to make a motion that we get FEA for this year. And if they can keep the same price for the next 2 years, that we include that.
Second.
Is there a second on that? Okay, we got a second on that.
Can I mention something?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I believe they have I believe it's a visual inspection yearly, and I believe every 5 years is the physical inspection.
Oh,
Is that
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, that changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to do this that wasn't clear in the RFP. And the other comment I have on the RFP is I think the committee would be well served if we could get those RFPs when they come out on an information basis so that we don't have to decide this at the monthly meeting.
so in other words, this FEA will come out this year because last year you said they did the big test. They're just going to visual this year, evidently.
Well, then what are we buying for the $32.50?
That's right. What are we getting?
It's already been 2 years since we did the installation. So that's when they did the test.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so last year was just a regular visual inspection.
So this year, do you think they'll do the full inspection or just a visual?
Well, I think the requirement is to do it at least every 5 years. We can have it done, the full one done more often, but that's the requirement.
What are we paying them for? I mean,
We're
You're
paying for the
paying for
continued
them to
certification
review
of
the
the
existing records, observe the exposed portions of the rooftop anchors. The observations will include looking for corrosion, cracks, and other distress that could indicate a problem with the system components. Please note that these observations are visual in nature and include destructive and will not include destructive or non-destructive test methods.
It sounds like this. It sounds like this is just the visual inspection that we're going to pay $32.50 for.
And the
Also the
report,
continued certification that you have to have for OSHA requirements.
Well, that's different from the very rigorous test procedure that Bert described, where he says that a lot is involved. It doesn't sound like what we're paying for this time is for any more than routine.
right?
I think you're right, but there's a fair amount involved in the visual inspection as well, in terms of looking at the past records as well as then officially certifying and standing behind it so it can become part of the record for guaranteeing it down the road and for OSHA's requirements.
I would like to remove my my recommendation and motion because I based it on what Bert had said that they were going to do. I'm really not equipped to handle any further.
What does the rigorous test cost? Does anybody know? I mean, is that a $15,000 hit or what?
I don't know. That was part of their original quote and engineering work with us. So I'm sure they separated it out and maybe we could dig that out. But at this point, I don't have a memory for what that portion of their engineering on the roof really was.
Well, the fact remains, we're still looking at June 22nd,
Right.
that the certification is going to expire. So I don't think we should wait till next month. We got to do something now.
Well,
Well,
that's right.
do we want to consider maybe just getting FEA out here, pay them the money, and then ask them to give us a full proposal for the rigorous test and then flesh out how much they would want to charge for a multi-year contract for that? I mean, we can dig into it, but unfortunately at this point, I've been struggling since I got this notice from FEA to find an engineering firm that will do this for us. I've been rejected twice and I'm still waiting on a third one who's been messing around since Monday. So We do need to at least get the visual inspection, and then we can dig into the deeper portion and a little bit down the road when the more invasive testing needs to be done.
We ought to keep this, on the agenda for the July meeting and find out, when you talk to them, what the full-blown stress test with all the loads and everything would be, so that we know what's coming up. And oh, by the way, that should be in the reserve study, is it?
Yeah.
And it's not there now, is it?
Certifications are typically not a reserve study item.
Really?
You know, that's usually an operational item. We can certainly find out from our accountant, our third-party accountant, if in certifications of roof anchors would be something that could be considered a reserve.
Well, whether it's reserve or operational, we're going to have to pay for it in the time that the schedule calls for. If that's 4 years away, your operational budget should have some money built in. If that's a very expensive item, we need to know how much it is when you talk to them. Get a ballpark figure, please.
Duly noted. Your question was, why isn't it in the reserve study? And that's, so I was speaking to that. As far as going to get a deeper dive on the actual process from FEA, absolutely. And that has already been noted.
Okay.
I will point out that the previous reserve study happened before our roof replacement and anchor install, so it wouldn't be on there anyway, regardless. We never had anchors before on the roof. So that will be in the new reserve study to replace, and I'm sure that we can put in the big test, maybe not the annual visual inspection, but the big hard test that's supposed to happen every 5 years. I'm sure we can put that in the reserves.
Fine, that's fine.
Okay, in the meantime, we need to either yes or no on FEA for 3,500 for a visual.
I don't think we have a choice.
No, we don't.
We don't
Because
have
the
a choice.
expiration date is in 3 weeks or less.
Well, you have a choice of two companies, so you have a little choice. Not
Well,
much.
I like FEA because we've used them for the roof and they know,
It's just gonna be a
understand.
visual, tell the difference.
The 5-year test was performed on May the 1st, 2018. So that was the
Okay.
5-year test.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, that's great.
So in the meantime, we still got to get a yearly inspection before June 22nd.
So we need to vote on this now.
That's right. So we changed the motion because George withdrew his motion. So now we have to have another motion on, we pick FEA for $3,500 to have them come out and do an annual inspection. Is there a motion for that?
I so moved, Jerry Bloomberg.
Okay, Jerry motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Second it.
Okay, now all in favor, raise your hand so I can see on the board here. You know, one, two.
And I vote yes.
Okay, we got enough. All right. Well, it passed unanimously. I got them all. All right. Now, the next thing on the agenda is losing track.
And let me just say that we may want to have Faith just ask them to do a roof inspection too, because we need to do that at the same time, at roughly the same time annually to maintain that warranty as well.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Basic visual thing. So we should probably just bundle that two together.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You want to amend the motion? You want to change the motion that was just passed?
No, just ask them to do that because they're supposed to do that anyway. That's an annual thing.
You know,
Make sure our warranty's good.
half of the thing that we're paying for is really the making them, two people coming out and looking at it and going back home. So
Yeah.
if they're here anyway, you know, maybe they can do the other as well.
That's right.
It's not a bad idea. It just wasn't in the motion.
That's all right. She'll send it out that way. All right. Next thing is reserve study. Hey, I'm trying to move through this as fast as I can. We got a lot of stuff here.
Page 25.
Yes.
Before you move on, I just want to point out that the board meeting is 3 days after the deadline. So we'll need to watch that.
What?
Ruth,
What
I
deadline?
had already made a note to myself to add this as an action in lieu.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and the reserve study on page 25.
On the year 2021, we have the $20,000 allowance for an AV system.
What are you talking about?
I'm looking at the corrected pages that was handed out as part of the package. It would be page 30 and 31.
Okay.
See on there about 3 lines down in the 2021.
I'm showing that first correction page is page 26. And Bill is correct. It's in the upper left-hand quadrant. And it's for projected replacement years 1 to 4. And he's speaking specifically to 2021. And it's line item 51, AV system allowance, $20,000.
I didn't catch all of that. Are we really projecting an allowance next year for an AV system?
Yes, sir. That's what's on the reserve study.
Okay, is that understood by the committee, and why?
That's a good question.
Faith, can you remind me, I'm trying to remember, was there an amount for the sound system in the previous reserve study? I don't remember.
Well, I have it right here, so give me just 1 second. Let me take a look.
Maybe the video was getting better.
The reason I'm asking this question is that if there was an amount, even if it was less than 20,000 in the previous reserve study, that means it was already an item on the reserve study. That means that we can easily go ahead and tap the funds for the 2021 in 2020. That's easily done. If the 2020 and 2020, if the 2021 is the first time the sound system comes into the reserve study, then we really can't use it for that. That's intended to be for future. You're not permitted to do something that isn't in the reserve study ahead of time.
I am not seeing any AV line items in the reserve advisors reserve study. All they have is they have community room renovation, including kitchen and furnishings. I mean, it depends on how loose you want to look at that renovation term.
Yeah, we could play that game since that's there, and consider that part of the renovation process for the party room.
And then we had Heather break it out specifically for this study because we were considering this new system.
And knew that in the future we would need to have that kind of funding available.
Correct.
I think we could stretch the point and not get in trouble with our auditors about that. I think that would work.
And those monies then were put in for 2018. So we still have money if we didn't spend that.
Somebody's phone's ringing.
Charlie, you're mute.
There was 65,000 put in 2018. Did you guys spend 65,000 in 2018 for any kind of renovations?
We did not.
Nope.
Well, there's our $8,800, $8,900.
I think that
Sitting there
can work.
waiting. Huh?
I think that can work.
What does the committee think? Are we all on the same page with this?
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds great.
Yep.
But
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
It's
Are we back to
$8,800.
the $8,900
Yeah.
that we take?
Well,
not-
that has actually been tabled for next month, but
Okay.
for next month, we now can feel more comfortable with actually considering the expenditure of that $8,800 to $8,900 because it is in the original reserve study, and there are monies in 2018 for a party room renovation that was not spent. And that amount of money in 2018 was 65,000 plus. None of it was spent. So next month, we can all feel very comfortable if the committee would consider expending 8,900 for the new audio visual.
Yeah.
And then we can adjust this reserve study $20,000 and take it out of 2021 since we've already spent it and move it down the line to 2025 or 2030.
okay, sounds good.
What do we think?
So does that leaves us with what, the remaining balance of about $57,000 for
You got it,
renovation? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
correct?
Do we have $57,000?
Oh, when we do the work in the party room, and which is still a couple of years off before we get into that, because we want to finish the elevator project first.
Right. I actually, on my corrected pages, Tom, put together a little bit of a budget adjustment, and I moved the hallway flooring and carpeting. I recommended that we move that out to 2024 so that in 2023, we can do the full party room renovation. The $8,900 that we can spend this year for the AV system is monies we did not spend in 2018. So we're going to be okay. And then I can, on what Bill is talking about, this page 26, upper left-hand quadrant, that $20,000, I can move that as a correction out of 2021 and move that down to or over to 2025. And that'll reduce that $539,000 by 20 grand. So it'd be 513,000.
Right. Okay,
Whatever.
that sounds
Stop,
good.
whatever. I'm not good at off the top of my head math, but yeah.
That sounds good.
Does that make sense, Tom, to you?
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
I had a question for you, Faith. You were just talking about 2023 to 2024, moving some things like in the hallway on your corrected pages.
Correct.
Like the flooring, lighting and like that. That's $326,260.
Yes.
Take 3 lines above that, which is the lobby and the mailboxes. That's about 238, almost 239,000. Add in party room renovations and like that, items 48, 49, 50. That's almost 116,000. You take all those lines together, that comes to about almost 681,000. Other buildings, when they did all those things at once, pushed the figure close to $1 million.
That's correct. So I think we need to think about how to adjust that.
So yeah, right. Because it will be, an estimated underestimation of about $300,000.
Well, my bottom line here shows that it's almost $1 million. We have $926,663 that I'm proposing we spend in year 2023. So I don't know if the bottom
Yeah,
total.
that's right. Right, but that's for everything. I just took
No,
out
sir, it's not.
the
That
lobby and like that.
At 926, actually, you're right. It takes out the hallway flooring and all of that. That 926, it was originally $1.3 million, which I think is way too much for an association to spend in 1 year. So I readjusted, removed items to total $401,260. And those items are line items 43 to 47 and line item number 90. All of the line items 43 to 47, I propose we move over to 2024. So that will leave us pretty much, and then we can add back that $20,000 that we're removing from 2021. We can add that back to 2023.
I have to agree with that.
I'd like to comment, if I may, considering the other buildings have not faced replacement of their roofs or their HVACs yet, that would be a factor in how they budgeted. Also, because they spent $1 million doesn't mean that we need to. So just, kind of keep that in perspective, that their expenditure would not necessarily, we would not need to match their expenditure.
I agree with that.
I realize that.
I think the real number that we'll probably end up with is going to be in the area of 800,000. But I would think that it's wise to have the number we have in there for planning purposes. If we spend less, we look much better than if we have to go over.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Okay, so.
But moving all this stuff around is a good idea.
Can I ask you about the window replacements? I thought that we had $16,000 a year in there in the past in the reserves. Am I wrong? It's now 70,000.
The 70,000.
That 70,000 is based on what we're actually doing these days.
Yeah.
Right.
For the last several years, we've been spending in that area every year. So that's why that is there.
It's moved up that much. Wow.
Yeah, 10 grand.
Well, what can I ask? I mean, obviously you're spending it, but how did it go up from 16,000 to 70,000?
Well, as the building gets older, these windows are deteriorating more quickly. So there's more of them any given time to replace.
That's 4 times as much, though.
It is. It's a lot. It's a lot.
We're doing more of them.
This
So
is,
for this year, through April, we spent $10,875 on windows
Through April.
in 4 months.
Okay, so that's 4 months.
Right.
So that would, if you project it, you're talking about 40,000.
30.
Yeah, that's for 4 months. So you got 4 months.
I'm sorry, so you're projecting 30,000.
Yeah, but if you got 40,000 for 4 months, that's 10,000 a month.
Oh, I thought you said 10,000.
10,000 a month. So if you got
10,000 a month. Oh. Okay.
So you got 120,000 if it keeps up.
Yeah, I got you.
This January through April, $10,875.
Okay, you got 10,000 for 3 months. Then.
10,000 for 4 months.
4 months. 4 months,
Okay.
January through April.
So that's $30,000 for the year
Okay, I got you.
instead of 70,000.
But what did we spend last? What did we spend last year? What was the final on last year's window?
I don't have that in front of me.
$66,000.
66,000.
That's right.
Is that an anomaly or is that something going on every year?
I don't know. I can only speak to my industry knowledge. I don't know the curve at Riverbend for this meeting right now. but I can tell you that once windows start failing, they do fail quickly because the components for all of them are about the same. They're losing their caulking, and the glass needs to be replaced, and all of that. So.
Okay, well, economic logic to me, if it doubles, you can understand that. If it quadruples, it just doesn't sound correct. It could be correct, but I think it needs to be looked into.
If I may, last year we had a pretty significant uptick in the number of reported. We had a number of windows that were increased last year.
You sound like Wolfman Jack. You got a lot of feedback coming from your station.
The older the building gets, the more windows will go bad. So that would
Sorry
be-
about that. Brian and I being in the same room with the microphones on.
Okay, so you're saying it was an anomaly last year?
Well, we had numerous units last year that had upwards of 14, 15 windows per unit that had to be replaced. That is not something that you're going to get every year. A number of these units had not had windows replaced in many, many, many years. Some of them were still original to the building. So they were 20 years
Well,
old.
that was my point, because 70,000 a year is a lot of money. So
It is.
Maybe that thing has to be looked at a little closer.
Well, that goes into a couple of the other line items that are in the reserve study for future basis of, because most of the issues is with the windows on the balcony window systems. So that's something else that needs to be evaluated. And that's why there's a separate line item in there for replacement of those balcony window systems, because that's where most of the issues are. It's not with the bedroom or the kitchen windows, it's the balcony window systems.
Exactly.
George?
Just
Yes.
a little history. It was only about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, that we actually started to taking the window replacements out of the reserves because the numbers were going up so high. Originally, there weren't that many going out, so it was part of the annual budget. But when we got it up, so we were spending 25, 35, 40,000 a year. We decided that should come out of the reserve funds, and that's when we put it in there 5 years ago.
I remember. I was part of that. Absolutely, I agree. But 70,000 wasn't close to that number. That's all. Faith, what do you show?
I'm looking at the reserve advisors, which is your reserve study that was done 5 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And they have, under window components, they have windows, aluminum frames, partial for one line item, and windows, glass repairs and partials. And I'm so sorry, in 2022. Oh, wait a minute. They look like I'm showing large numbers for 2016 of 51,650. 2017, 53,000, 2018, 55. And then we have at 2020, they're scheduling us to spend 58,000 this year. And then it goes up 60,000, 62,000, 64. So I'm not seeing where you found the 16,000 that you're saying we're quadrupling our estimation. Where did that figure come from, George?
I think it might have been from the year before when I was on the budget committee.
Okay.
I'm talking about maybe 6-7 years ago. But but okay, it's still it still sounds like something that needs to be looked into. I mean, these people put studies in there, but I mean, if it is 70,000 a year, then obviously we should put it in there. But if it's an unrealistic figure, then we shouldn't. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I know that I'm looking at 55 to 66, 60. Well, we're in 2022, 2021, from 51 to 60,000 from 2016 to 2021. So the fact that now we're 5 years later, jumping that up to 70,000, to me, that's a reasonable increase because it's only $3,000 over what your reserve folks.
You know, you're correct, but I think we should look back and see what the 5 years in actuality was compared to what their study was, because as you understand, they just look at numbers. They don't look at,
Right.
you know,
Right.
conditions.
Well, I know that this year when we worked with Heather, Debbie and I pulled the actual file folder and did the old fashioned, you know, calculator with adding
Great.
machine. And that's where we got our total. And it ended up being like 67,000. So we asked Heather to just put in 70 to make it a nice round figure.
Okay, all I'm saying is it's a $350,000 figure over 5 years. So now if you
Yeah.
look over and see how
It is.
the actuals were compared to what their estimates were, to see if it maybe might be a little unrealistic or not. It might, if it's realistic, fine, but you know, I just think you have to do due diligence on a $350,000 number.
I think that's what Faith said that she and Debbie did.
Yeah, it's a real
They
number.
actually did look at the numbers for the past few years. And that's
Yep.
where,
The past 5 years.
yes. That's how they came up with the number.
Does that include screens?
No,
No,
no screens.
Screens are part of, we asked the homeowners to take care of the screens.
Right.
Okay. Does do Brian and James handle that?
as
What?
in unit maintenance, yes.
No, I mean, to get a new screen, we have a screen that's got, I don't know how, I assume from birds or something. It's got some holes poked in it.
Well, we have recommended and used many times, we've used American Screening Glass to do that, and they have a reasonable price for it.
Okay.
And that's who I would recommend. And they did all mine shortly after we moved in, and they still look great.
Yeah.
Great.
I just did
American-
I
mine
used
last,
them too.
I just did mine last fall, so hey, they make a good screen because they're real tight. The new ones are anyway.
Yeah, I used them, and Tom, you asked me who I used, and then you used them.
Yeah,
I've been satisfied with them.
I know, when I put them back in this spring, I couldn't only get 2 in, so I had to have Brian come up and put the other ones in. They're tight.
Faith?
Yeah.
Are you expecting the great people to look at the grates? The gate just let somebody in a few minutes ago. I told him
Yeah,
to wait till after the Zoom
as a
meeting.
matter of fact, I am. He's supposed to be here at noon. And I guess it's about 5 till, so.
I'm watching the camera. They
Would,
Okay. What happened to Faith? Are you there, Faith?
yes.
Okay, what are we doing now? Now we got the windows taken care of.
What are we spending what are we planning to spend $82,000 on for the exhaust fans? Where did that come from?
82,000 on what?
So
Yeah,
the exhaust
yeah.
fans, there's a total of
2021 line item 78 exhaust fans, $82,800.
Oh, yeah.
Which exhaust fans are these?
What page is that on? What page was that on?
26.
I have a corrected page. It's not directly out of there. It's page 30. That was what
The
came with the.
electronic version had the full reserve study in it. And the electronic version of that I emailed out, it's page 26. I did not print the full reserve study and deliver it because I've been asked to cut back on some of the paper. The electronic versions are going to be the full version of the meeting packet. So if you want to look at your email, if not, you should have a copy of the reserve study there. And if you're looking at just a copy of the reserve study, it would be page C.2. So to summarize, for
I'm looking at
meeting packet, you want to look at page 26. If you're looking at a printed version that doesn't have pages, you want to look at page C.2.
What?
C.2.
Well, this looks like a summary that was put out with the package as a whole. And I'm looking at what was planned for the year 2021.
Correct. I gave you in the printed version, you got the corrected pages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't anybody see that line item for $82,000?
I do.
Yeah, I do. I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking
I would
about
like
the
to speak to this.
You're talking about the exhaust fans.
Yeah.
Brian,
Okay.
can I ask you a question, Brian?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that is related to all as exhaust fans on the roof. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the way we have been doing it is replacing them as needed.
Correct.
But we have included it as a one cost in the reserve study every so often, but we use against that whenever they're needed. So we replace it on a regular basis anyway. It's not a whole bulk. We don't replace all of them at once.
To add to what Bert just said, the housings and stuff with those fans on the roof are approaching their life expectancy and need to be replaced in mass. So yes, there are about 78 fans on the roof, but in total, there's about 180 supply and exhaust fans throughout the building that need to be evaluated and or replaced.
Okay, so it's a bona fide number.
Yes.
Yes.
The other item on 2021 is just to be sure that we're correct on the schedule that the elevator working group is working against. Our scheduling is such that we will not start actual construction until the second half of next year. So it gives us a year to get all of the design work done and have a bid package out, just to be sure that's our schedule.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right.
We'll do one elevator next year at the last half and the other two in the other following year.
Yeah, I understand that. I just didn't know we were going to start that late.
Yeah.
That's kind of needed in order to not run our reserve funds too low. This is thinking ahead and planning ahead.
Yeah.
I agree.
It takes about, what, 6 months to fix one elevator anyway.
Year 2022, we're showing a fire annunciator replacement for $41,500. Is that something that we've had in all along and we just keep bumping it along, or who put that in?
I believe that was put into the system by the evaluator. I know it's been an issue with some parts and pieces to the system that need to be replaced. And after 20 years, it's highly recommended that the annunciator panel be replaced.
So this was put in by the lady that did the reserve study?
Yes.
Okay.
This is still the original system. And actually, I think we're one of the few on the campus that still has the original system. This one seems to have had a better life and more reliable than some of the others. And so most of the other buildings have, I don't think all of them, but some of it, at least two of them have replaced theirs already. So just keep that in mind. That is coming down the pike at some point here, and we got it on the schedule.
That's fine.
Anything else?
Well, we have an elevator modernization. Oh, I see. You've deducted that elevator modernization in the year 2026.
Right.
That's fine.
I only went 5 years out because we have to get this redone in 5 years anyway. So there's very little modification beyond 5 years, maybe a little bit here and there, but not too much.
$2025, 5 years, yeah. Anybody else got anything?
I just wanted to speak to Bill's mention of the fire enunciator panel. Your original reserve advisors reserve study called for about $28,000 to have been spent in 2017. Did you spend that money then? Did you update your fire? No?
No.
So this 41,500 is actually pretty much on the money for the year and necessity. So I would recommend leaving that in there.
I hope that the amount for the enunciator panel includes what it's going to cost for a consultant to come in and design this, because that's a very expensive process for a consultant. Because I
did not allow an engineer fee for that.
I think that's a good suggestion. We need to make sure the engineer costs are included in this one too. We have done that for the roof and other projects in the future, but we haven't necessarily done it for that one.
This is another very specialized area, very specialized line of business, and there aren't that many fire safety consultants around that you can trust that are reasonably priced.
Well, she allowed 34,000 in 2023 for engineering fees. Do we want to put maybe ask her to add 20,000 in 2022 for this fire alarm system?
Yeah, just a marker. That may not be an accurate figure, but we should.
No,
begin.
but we need a marker. So
we need an RFP out for a fire safety consultant or to give us the design.
Faith, can you explain to me what's included in item 21 in year 2026? The balcony patio replacements. The $1,880,000.
In 2026?
2028, I'm sorry.
Well, that's a long way off.
Yeah, I only went 5
But we're
years
still
out
going to be
with-
putting money aside for that.
Yeah,
Not really. That we're
That
only
will
gonna,
be to replace the entire balcony enclosure window systems and making your balconies watertight.
right.
But we're still going to be putting money aside for that now, for that. Is that something that's really going to something that's really going to take place in 7 years?
I don't
Well,
think so.
myself and the building engineers did discuss this pretty much at length because we had noticed that she'd put some money in for windows, but windows, regular sliding kitchen windows, and the balcony enclosures are two different structures. And we're thinking that what we have now, we can piecemeal with over the next couple of years with the $70,000 allotment for a unity unit. But in 7 years, we're probably, as an association, going to want to look at that project as a whole, to stop piecemealing it and just do it soup to nuts and replace everybody's. So that
What is that? Explain to me what that means. Does they take out all the windows and replace them?
The balcony enclosure system is, when you walk out, a solarium rather, she should have used the word solarium than balcony because we don't have balconies. We have solariums. So when you walk out, all sides of your windowed solarium from top to bottom would be taken off and replaced. And this time we would try to see if we could get it replaced so it doesn't leak. So it's actually so that the room is actually modified. So it's supposed to be an exterior room as opposed to a balcony with some glass on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then that would eliminate the $70,000 a year for the windows?
That would probably, not windows. It would eliminate the $70,000 for the balcony enclosures. So you have unit windows and then you have your balcony enclosures. Now they're all glass, but the unit windows are different types of glass and have different rates of failure. The balcony enclosures are a thicker type of glass, but unfortunately they're balconies with some glass on it instead of a real solarium. And we were hoping that by 2027, we'd have, between the roof and the HVAC and all the lobby renovations and hallway and all of that, that we would then be able to tackle this huge project at that point, because everything else in the building would be done.
I see. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
As you know, in River Bend, the original intent was to have open balconies.
Yes.
And then everybody that moved in initially, except for one person, said they wanted it enclosed. So they put them all enclosed, but it wasn't originally designed that way. Moving forward with Blue Ridge and the rest of them, they designed them deliberately to permanently enclosed balcony areas, or solarium, if you wish to call it that. So ours are a bit more vulnerable than everybody else's in that regard, and it explains some of the leaking that went on because the floors are tapered out, so rain would have washed off during storms, etc. And that made for framing it out kind of difficult, and so they are not quite as tight and nice and neat as we'd like to see it. Will that all need to happen in 2028? That's a big question. We don't really know the answer to that. They've done pretty well up to now, and we used to have this little program that we keep going and spending some money on in terms of ceiling. But will they actually have to be replaced by then? We don't know that. And as we look at the totals, as it comes down to the line in terms of the reserve study, if this is pushing it up, all these big investments are pushing it a little too hard. That's one item you could push back a couple of years, even 5, and then potentially still be okay, be able to afford it. But that's the kind of thing we can take a look at once we have come back with what's it going to be every year that we have to add to the reserve study in order to keep it funded properly.
Well, Bert, I totally understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely correct. My whole reasoning for looking at it and being picayune with this stuff is that our fees are so much higher than other buildings. I don't want to get it to a point that we are not competitive with other properties in LWVA, which is really happening and is happening now.
Well, yes, last year our fees were higher, and that is a concern for sure. I totally agree with you. And if we can, that's why I say if we can push it out a little bit successfully, we might well do that. So I agree with you. Let's not compare ourselves to Potomac Ridge. They got a big income from those microwave antennas, but there are other buildings do have, and we are an older building, so we're seeing a lot more expenses right now than they are, and theirs are going to go up, believe me.
Well, but if we say we're an older building and we have these expenses, then people are going to want to go to another building. They can get the same things. So we have to really just be smart and diligent. And obviously we have to do the replacements. That's without question. But you're right. Like something like this, if it can be thought out, pushed out, maybe there are some other things to keep the rentals from going up so that we don't become non-competitive at all, because it's going to affect our resales in the future.
I agree. So far, it has not had a negative effect. We sell ours just as quick as the others, and actually our average per unit sales price is going up a little quicker than the others. So that's very nice for us.
All right, anything else on the reserve study?
Nope.
I didn't hear it. Anybody else? Okay. I guess we got a proposed motion here for the updates to the reserve study for 9, Okay, for a new party room sound system and 300,000 for the elevator project, second half of next year, and $600,000 for the year 2000 or 2022. Is there any motion on this? Do I have a motion?
What page do we have?
And this, with the whole thing, we're talking about the whole thing.
Come on.
Is there anybody making a motion? Hello?
Yes,
Are you
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I didn't think anybody heard me.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll make the motion to, for the reserve study for $9,000 for new party room, sound system, 300,000 for the elevator project, second half of 2021, $600,000, 2022 for the completion of the elevator project.
Any seconds?
Seconded.
Okay. I know we discussed this though. Any more discussion on it? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Right?
I gotta count your hands. I can't. Oh, hey, I see everybody. Okay, I got you. Okay, Charlie, you're not. Oh, there you are. Charlie, you gonna vote? Charlie said no. So there's, of course, I can't see Joy and I can't see Joyce and Jerry. I can't see either one
I
of them.
go yes.
Okay,
Joyce?
Joyce, you're mute. I can't. You're mute.
Sorry, had a phone call.
Okay, well, you yes or no on this?
What?
Okay,
Just vote yes.
just say yes.
I'll abstain if it's a vote.
Okay.
All right, so got one no and one abstain, the rest is yes. Okay, moving
Six
on.
yeses, one no, one abstention.
Yeah,
I just like to say, I think they did a very good job.
yes,
Thank
they
you.
did. I
would like
liked,
to know.
in fact, I have my little, what do you want to call it? What they fees should go up next year. That's just in my mind. I won't say anything about that, but anyway, let's go on to the next thing, which is the 2021 budget recommendations. I didn't see that. On page 28, I don't have a page 28. Do I? Yes, I do. I got too many books.
Me too.
Isn't that what we just voted on? Page 28?
Not the same thing.
Not the same thing here.
There's another
George,
28?
it is very similar,
Yeah,
but
it
it is
is.
just a little bit different.
Yeah,
One
it's got the
for the
4,000
reserve
for the full
study.
safety.
And one is to actually authorize and appropriate it into the budget. So that when Shirley, Ruth and I sit together on Friday, we have some semblance of what the building facility committee wants us to spend.
That's a good idea. Okay. Yeah, let's have a motion on that one. Anybody got a motion for this one?
Well, the addition to this, by the way, just to point out, is there's an additional $4,000 that we're asking the building facilities to recommend for the BFC to put in to operations for the inspection, the fall inspection.
Yeah,
We
that's for
have
next
that
year.
money, budgeted this year.
Yeah, that's for next year, not ours.
Correct.
This year. Okay,
Yes, sir.
gotcha. All right, and is there a motion on that? Anybody? Nobody wants to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Move to recommend the board include 4,000 for the annual fall safety inspection and operations funded them, 9,000 for a new party room sound system, 300,000 for the elevator project to start in the second half of 2021.
Sounds good. All right. Second?
I second it. Jerry Bloomberg.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
I guess everybody voted yes this time. All right. The RFP for discussion only is with VDA on elevators. That's a discussion. That's no voting on that. That's just a discussion.
Yeah, several
That will be
things.
brought up next week, right, Bill? That'll be brought up next week with the elevator people.
Well, there are several things that the committee ought to be aware of. I had, Faith and I have been in communication on this. It wasn't clear to me who does the actual engineering work that gets signed off on by the county. And as it turns out in this line of business, our elevator consultant designs only the elevator performance specifications that, you know, deal with that part of the business. But when you turn it over to the elevator constructor, maybe it could be Schindler, they actually have the engineering staff that produces the documents. This is not going to be done by VDA.
Right.
That's new information. And so what we pay VDA is not the same as the total engineering that has to be done. This will be done when we bid it out, and the firm that gets it will provide the actual engineering that gets approved by the county and the other authorities. At the elevator working group next week, I am working on a draft of an RFP to be input by everybody that's on the line here as to what's going to be in that. It's got to be very carefully written because we want to make sure we have no misunderstanding with what VDA is going to do. I think there was consensus about going with VDA as an award rather than recompeting the design and construction administration phase. This is the time to speak up if anybody has any objections to that. If not, that's the way I will draft the draft RFP, and I'll try to get that out by this weekend so the working group members have an opportunity to look it over before the meeting.
Okay, so for clarification, Bill, just want to make sure that we were, as the committee, we talked about just streamlining and staying with VDA. And that was the question you just posed to the committee. Do they agree with us streamlining and sticking with VDA? Was that your question?
That's what everybody on the working group said. I just wanted to be sure that the building committee is on board with that. There had been several discussions, side discussions about whether or not we could save some money by offering that up to all of the consultants that we consulted with and got their fee on. But the building engineers were so satisfied with what they saw from VDA at the working level that they thought we should do that. And I don't disagree with that. It does save some time. This was the one project that we got a long reach on though, because we don't get actual documents out on the street until sometime next year.
So the RFP is really for the construction phase of the
No,
elevator?
they have to do a design phase, which only addresses the functionality of the elevators themselves. They will then, if we agree with their design, they will then bid out to an elevator constructor the elevator specification piece of the total plans and specifications that will contain all of the structural engineering, the electrical engineering, the mechanical engineering that has to be added. Now, the concern that I have is this means that your constructor is doing his own inspection of the other parts other than the engineer. If there's structural issues and they're doing their own inspection on that, since we're not hiring an additional inspector, this poses a conflict of interest.
What happened? Are we there?
I think we're absorbing that. that was a big bite to chew.
Say again?
We're trying to, I think we're all absorbing that. That was a big bite to chew. So,
Well, it's a weakness, you know, you try to address. You've got to have somebody inspecting on these things, and it doesn't look like VDA will do any address of the other forms of engineering other than the elevator engineering.
right, that is true.
And so whether or not they would look over the shoulder of the elevator constructor and look at those factors, we have nothing to check on that unless we wanted to hire our own construction inspector. It's another issue we can have to resolve through the working group.
Well, I think that will have to be presented to the working group on Tuesday. Or
Yeah,
when
we should prepare an agenda for that to discuss all the various aspects of it. The other question that I had is, I had discussed with Faith earlier, when our contact with VDA wrote back, he only singled out Schindler. And don't know whether you got agreement on him that we could let this out to all of the available constructors in the area.
Well, my thought process is whether he agrees or not, this association does have the freedom to engage any service provider it chooses. So once we purchase that report, or once we purchase those design contracts, proposals, and or drawings, those are ours. And
well, they are, but we are, as we have always in the past, we are depending upon our designer to assist us in terms of finding qualified vendors. Okay, and so
well, they can help us vet, but if we don't agree with who they vet, then we can vet our own. Absolutely, there's a freedom we have.
I don't think we have anybody that has the expertise to second guess them.
No, but we can certainly learn vicariously through that brings me back to my whole point of we own that stuff once we buy it from VDA. We can learn through their reports and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just take their scope of work and send it out to our elevator choice. There's not that many though. Potomac, Otis, Schindler, Wakefield, and I can't forget, it's something, but it's not that many.
One of the mistakes I made once upon a time was that I had an architect that worked with certain contractors, and we made him work with a contractor that he was not familiar with, and it cost us a bundle. So we are going to be, I think, dependent upon his recommendation as to who he thinks the qualified constructors are in this area. Whether we like it or not, we cannot afford to second guess his recommendation. If we go with them, we don't bid out to other consultants, and we stuck with this guy. You have to depend upon his recommendation.
No, we wouldn't bid out to other consultants, but if he likes Schindler and we like Potomac Elevator, we have every right to take the reports we purchase.
She's not listening to me.
I'm not debating that. I mean, we have the right, but do we want to take it?
Well, that's a very different question, and that is something that the committee would have to evaluate.
Okay.
Anybody else got anything about the RFPs? Well, we got to do that for the meeting Tuesday. Not this Tuesday. I don't think it's this Tuesday.
Yes, it's this Tuesday.
Coming up Tuesday.
Oh, well, how about that? Man, time flies. Time flies when you're having fun.
Right?
Okay, the last thing on here is the new business is the virus thing, reopening of the beer factory or whatever. Every time I see Corona, I think of beer. Anyway, I guess that's just for people's information. It's going to open up certain things at a certain time, blah, blah, blah.
I think the governor said yesterday that he was extending phase one for Loudon County for at least 2 weeks.
Yes, he did say that, and we there's a group of committee member or group of folks that formed a Clubhouse Reopen working group, and Jack Kelly is Riverbend's representative on it, and basically they have taken the attitude that since we are in a vulnerable crowd compared to everybody else, basically all the deaths that have occurred in our age group so far in Loudoun County. That means we need to be extra cautious. So opening up is very, very slow process. They did present to the board at yesterday's meeting a matrix of different parts and pieces around campus and when they might be opened and how they would be opened. And there's a lot more detail to come. And that might be something that would be interesting for everybody to see, that matrix, and be part of how that is being developed. I sit in on it on a regular basis just to observe. So since Jack isn't here to give you his view, if you have any other questions, I can certainly try to answer.
The matrix was page 14 of the printed version. The LWVA matrix, page 14 of the printed version.
Oh yeah, I got it.
It was attached originally only as a management report line item. However, in our covenants meeting last week, the chair, Jack Kelly, recommended that we take the Blue Ridge, the Blue Ridge matrix and revise it for Riverbend. So that's why we have a management report notation, and then you have an actual update that came out last Friday. So
I have a question on this new policy in phase 2 for gatherings. It has a 50-person limit. And from LWVA phase 2, it had a 10 resident capacity.
I took for mine, I went back to the governor's plan, and his estimation for phase 2 or towards the end of phase 2 would be 50. Now LWVA wants to reduce that's fine. I just use the governor's numbers.
Well, that's the governor's numbers is based also on social spacing, which we have no rooms here where we could begin to fit that many people in a socially spaced way. So that's why that's been tempered and brought back a little bit in terms of size for LW.
Got it.
Right. My question is, I have a good question on people, we're supposed to be mandatory on masks in the building. And I see a lot of them without masks in the building.
Well,
and I brought it up to them and they just look at me like I'm a dummy and they walk on.
I'm sorry.
And I'm getting very impatient with that because I'm not a patient person and I'm getting impatient. So you may get me rode up or something next time because I'm tired of it. But there needs to be something under everybody's door. If I knew where these people lived, I would put it on their door. But
right on the front door when you walk into the building.
Well, I know, but they still don't do that. We got people that walk in and out all the time. They're coming in through the garage or whatever, and they don't put their mask on. They don't even have a mask. They just walk in, and they're residents. They're residents. They live here. I know them. I don't know their name, but I know who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm getting damn sick and tired of it.
Well, there are several factions of the population that are actually exempt from wearing a mask. Anybody that has COPD, asthma, any kind of fibroids in their lungs, anything like that, they are actually exempt. Certain
I understand.
allergies might find people exempt, and I don't have the full exhaustive list, but please keep in mind that wearing a mask is not the be all to end all. There are some people that can't wear a mask. And if you're seeing service providers, that we talked with Bert about, we're going to go ahead and speak to them. If they ignore us, we can call security. And,
Yeah,
and
these are residents.
But when you have homeowners, there's not a lot we can do because they may be exempt. And they don't have to wear a sign. They don't have to produce medical information.
Constitutional right.
I know, but they look healthier than I am, and they're walking around. I mean, they look, I don't get the picture. I really don't.
I hear you, Tom. I do. I really do. I wish everybody would wear a mask, even if it's just a thin cotton fibrous thing, because it would, perception is a lot of what we're managing here.
Well, that's just my gripe, I guess. I don't.
Well, I have to know most people wear them.
Yes, they do. Yeah, we're about 98% wearing them. So.
And maybe even more. It has actually improved over the last 2-3 weeks. I think more people are wearing them. We did have an issue with some delivery folks that were refusing to wear them and delivering things in here. Particularly, there was an event with confrontation with a FedEx guy, and he says, "I just don't believe in them." Well, we have now at the gatehouse, they are putting up signs there and handing things to the delivery people that say on it, if you enter one of our buildings, you must wear a mask. And we can tell them what to do and what not to do. They don't have otherwise. And we have tried to reach out and contact FedEx to complain about that guy and get him to not be coming to our place anymore.
Look, that's good. Well, I'm not complaining about the workers because I see the people walking in delivering or whatever. They always have masks on. It's these people that live here, and I know who they. I don't know their name. I don't even know the unit number they live in. Because if I did that, I would put something on their door saying, "Hey, wear a mask." I even put one on their door, but I don't know. So anyway, I'll keep my mouth shut. And and anybody else got anything? If not, how about the residents? Any residents that's online? You got anything to say, Marie?
I have nothing to say.
Hey.
This is not about grounds. I have nothing.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? If not, let's close the meeting with an adjournment.
Tom?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Were we supposed to do a motion on that COVID-19 just to accept that, or?
I didn't see that. I just think.
Well,
no.
Yeah.
I was looking at.
The only thing I guess that I would say that, Ken, thank you, that we could change under phase 2 is reduce that 50-person limit to 10 persons because of our setup. And then if the committee recommends, then we can move it on to the board. And if the board accepts your recommendation, this is something we'd like to post through Building Link to all of the homeowners, so they kind of know what's going on.
That's fine.
But my only interjection again is under the proposed motion, if whoever reads the motion could enter the caveat that the 50-person limit should be changed to 10.
We really need a motion to say that we're going to do all this stuff? Really?
I don't think you need a motion. I think it'd be brought up to the board. The board can deal with it and that'll be fine.
Yeah, that's board stuff, not us.
Actually, I'd like to see it posted well before the board meeting.
Well, we can
We're
all
looking at
agree.
the end of the month.
Well, there's 3 of us right here if you want to vote.
So I'm glad I typed the motion.
Well, you got 3 people right there on the board. Hey, you know,
I just
Support?
don't think we should wait to the end of the month to get it out.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. In fact,
I-
we can just do it. That's the kind of thing we can just post. You know,
Yeah.
Management has that right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, for the
Yep.
benefit of everybody on YouTube, I will make the change from 10-person limit or 50-person limit to 10-person in phase 2, and that's based on our building configuration. And we'll go ahead and get this posted via building link by tomorrow afternoon.
Can I just make another observation? I think either Bert or Faith once a week should email an update on what's going on with the COVID virus and what's happening here. I thought this was very, very good to hear from you, Bert. But I think if we got an email once a week and an update of what's going on, I think it'd make everybody a lot happier. I know it would give me a lot more comfort.
I will make an effort to do that. Sure.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I have a question for Faith. Do we have, if you're able to answer, do we have any active cases? I know we had some and they're resolved of patients that, tenants that got better. Is there anybody that we know of that you're at liberty to say, just not their name, but just, we have 1 person, 2 people, whatever, that are sick?
I have no further information beyond the initial 3.
Okay, then we must be clean. Good.
In fact, across campus, 4 is all I've heard of.
Yep.
There were a couple of building engineers and a couple of cleaning ladies in other buildings that had theoretically come in contact with somebody, but when it was investigated, they realized they were in contact with somebody that had been in contact, and they still isolated themselves for the 14 days, and everybody is just fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't pay attention to rumors.
Well,
Okay,
that's why we support George's recommendation to get something out.
Yeah.
Because you're right, without, in the absence of information, people make stuff up. So at
oh,
this,
good to, do
for
they ever,
YouTube,
between the
we
golf
have
course and over
4
here.
Yeah, you think those golfers were fishermen the way they stretched the things.
Oh my God, they're over there. They're bending my ear, and I'm trying to play golf, and they're telling me all this weird stuff. And then I come over here and I hear, and Kathy's got a friend over in Magnolias, and she comes up with these things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is this is bad situation, but it's a rumor, so it's gone.
We all
Nobody
need,
knows it.
we
And
all
nobody
need,
knows about it, but Faith and Bert and me.
this is Joyce Moore. Can you hear me?
yes.
We all
ahead.
need to be patient with each other. If we want to discipline someone about not wearing a mask, we must do it softly and kind and be kind to each other. And remember, it's a difficult time
It
for
is.
everybody.
I
Well
agree.
said.
Well said.
I agree.
Thank you.
But I don't have patience a lot of times, so that's my
Just
downfall.
ask them if
A lot
they
of
forgot their
times.
mask.
All right, let's, anybody want to, anything else, or shall we adjourn? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
All right, we're all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Right.
All right.
Aye.
Let's
We're
have
adjourned.
lunch.
At lunchtime.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can Zoom lunch. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.